Thank you. Welcome and thank you for attending the Colorado Office of Natural Medicine Licensure stakeholder meeting via webinar today. The date is January 6, 2025, and it is 1:32 p.m. Before we get started, we would like to introduce the staff members from the Division of Professions and Occupations that are present. My name is Sarah Warner. I am the Deputy Division Director for Policy and Communications for the division. Also attending today are Lori Bratton, Program Director, Jackie Ursuline, Deputy Division Director for Program Operations, and Maria Rascone, Regulatory Coordinator. The division has transitioned to a platform that is 100% virtual, and we appreciate your flexibility. As many of you have been to DORA stakeholder meetings before, we would like to reiterate the importance of your comments today. DORA makes decisions every day that may affect your life and your business, so your input is vital to the rulemaking process. Throughout this process, our goal is to create regulations that clarify and explain legislation, ensure minimum competency to enter and continue practice, and provide what is only absolutely necessary for consumer protection without creating unnecessary barriers to the marketplace. Your input will be part of the information that goes to the director as he considers adopting revisions to rules. More specifically, today we will receive feedback on proposed revisions to Rules 2.5, 6.16, 6.17, and 6.18, and proposed new Rule 2.10. The purpose of the proposed revisions is to clarify and simplify the rules, correct clerical errors, and address public safety concerns. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the program's website by the close of business tomorrow. As the stakeholder meeting is held solely by webinar, please raise your hand using the hand icon if you would like to speak, and we will unmute your line so that you can be heard by everyone. Or you can type your comment in the question section and we will read it aloud. Before we start taking comments, I want to ask that anyone providing comments please state your name and the name of the organization that you represent, if any. Feel free to provide either general comments on the rule changes or specific comments on the proposed language. Please limit your comments to no more than 2 minutes and try not to repeat something that was already said. Stating you're in full agreement with someone else works just fine and will be noted. If you're using audio through your computer, please remember to put any phones on vibrate or turn them off. And whether you are using computer or phone audio, try to keep background noises at a minimum while speaking. So with that, if you want to go ahead and raise your hand, I will call on people in the order that they appear on our screen. And I do want to mention too, I apologize if I mispronounce any names. I will do my best. Our first person is Tasha Poinsett.
Sorry, are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tasha Poinsett. I'm the Florida Director with the Healing Advocacy Fund. And first of all, I just wanted to thank Dora and the staff at Dora for the opportunity to engage in a little bit more depth around the proposed changes to 6.18. I know that that was discussed in some depth at the last rulemaking hearing, and that the staff there really heard the stakeholder requests to have more conversation around this. I do still have concerns about 6.18 as currently written, specifically because it still seems to leave out people with disabilities, whether physical or mental disabilities, that would prevent them from leaving the home. And so I ask that DORA expand this option for at-home facilitation to people who are homebound, and consider perhaps a recommendation from a treating provider that somebody be able to access at-home care, or other cases beyond just palliative care. I still think that the palliative care designation is a little bit too specific in regards to the intent of both Proposition 122 and SB 23290 to create access for people who face significant barriers to leaving their homes. And then I'm also a little concerned about the changes that drop a healthcare facility from the definition of unauthorized location, recognizing that healthcare facilities were specifically defined in statute as an option for authorized locations, and there may be situations where healthcare facilities can't comfortably be licensed as a healing center, but could serve as a location where natural medicine services safely take place. So request the reconsideration of that in 6.18. And then I also just wanted to touch on 6.17F and really, again, express appreciation to the staff at DORA and the advisory board for considering this shorter session length option for amounts below 2 milligrams of total psilocin. And this was something that myself and the Healing Advocacy Fund had recommended consideration of to bring the rules in closer alignment with Oregon's program and create options for people that would be more affordable and accessible to start at a really low dose and have that experience before diving into the more expensive and higher dose therapeutic options. And so appreciate the recommended rule changes there. I would advocate for increasing the group size for that beyond just 8 people. I think, in Oregon, they've had this rule in place for the past 2 years now, and it allows group sizes of up to 25 to one facilitator. So something closer approaching that would be preferable from an access perspective. Thank you so much for considering these comments. And with that, I'll yield to the next person.
Thank you. Our next person is Jimmy Smers. Jimmy, you have been unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Jimmy Smers. I represent Site 4. I appreciate this opportunity to testify today. These rules significantly increase costs for licensees and, unfortunately, taxpayers, compounding financial challenges for the natural medicine program. I previously proposed a public-private partnership to alleviate some of this burden on the state. Last week, Joe Rogan had a podcast that revealed states like Texas and Arizona are actively exploring similar agreements as they establish their programs. Colorado should definitely consider adopting this approach. During Dora's December 18th presentation to the Joint Budget Committee, it was evident that lawmakers lacked detailed financial information to evaluate this program. This lack of transparency is especially troubling as Colorado currently faces a $1 billion budget shortfall. SB 23290 made the program's financial challenges worse by removing the requirement that general fund startup costs be reimbursed once revenue is collected. This creates a long-term liability for Colorado taxpayers. At the same hearing, Senator-elect Amabile claimed that personal use provisions of 122 prevent the program from breaking even. While I raised this concern about personal use in 2023, this argument no longer holds. In Oregon, the demand for psilocybin license holders has actually dropped this year despite recriminalizing psilocybin throughout the state. Criminalizing personal use here would not meaningfully reduce the cost or liability. Demand for this product is not like anything else. Recently, New York has reintroduced a proposition where minimal facilitator training requirements would be needed. They would essentially be a one-day training program. The Psychedelic Science Funders Collaborative has planned to raise $130 million, partially to inflate demand in Oregon and Colorado. This further distorts the markets and creates unrealistic expectations for license holders and taxpayers who are going to hold the financial burden. I urge DORA at this point just to approach philanthropic organizations like PSFC for funding. Without this, taxpayers and license holders will bear the costs and certainly lose money for something that Colorado did not vote for. I appreciate the opportunity to testify on this and thank DORA for all their hard work.
Thank you for your comments. Oops, I apologize. I accidentally muted myself. Kenneth Weingart, you are unmuted.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity to share these comments. I am Ken Weingart. I am a licensed psychologist. I do not have any organizational affiliation at this time. I'm deeply troubled by the proposed regulation in 6.18 limiting authorized locations to participants' residences only if they have advanced terminal or chronic illnesses and receiving palliative care. I believe this undermines one of the key tenets of the Natural Medicines Act, which is to provide ready access to an effective treatment for all Coloradans. It significantly impacts the most vulnerable populations, including those who have physical, mental, and sensory impairments that would prevent them from receiving treatment at a healing center. Let's not forget that travel to a distant healing center will necessarily restrict access to this service to those who can afford gas, food, and lodging, and the opportunity, and as well as the fees associated with the treatment itself. I share Tasha's concern about dropping healthcare facilities as authorized locations. These locations can be reasonable and appropriate for provision of these services as they are already licensed and put into place all sorts of provisions to ensure patient safety. I am also very concerned about the services being provided in a healing center. For the record, I'm deeply suspicious about how these last-minute rule changes came about. Is it to drive business to healing centers? Why the provision that the facilitator work for or with a healing center provide these services? What's my incentive to become a clinical facilitator independently licensed? If I would be forced to work either under contract or as a direct employee of a healing center that I currently don't have a relationship with. Why would somebody need to be licensed to provide independent facilitation if they must be in the employ of these organizations? Finally, I would argue that is there any precedent in other fields for such or similar arrangements? I'm a licensed psychologist in Colorado, and I'm not subject to any such restrictions. I can provide services to my clients when and where they need my help. And I hope that the division adopts this perspective or changes the rules in light of that. My final comment is, let's just be clear. These changes, along with the personal use regulations, will definitely drive services underground, and that is not where the department wants things to go. Thank you for this opportunity to share my perspective. I yield my time to the next speaker.
Thank you for your comments. Kevin Franciotti, you have been unmuted.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my comment today. My name is Kevin Franciotti. I'm a licensed addiction counselor in private practice and trained in psychedelic assisted therapies, and I'm an educator both independently and through Naropa University's former graduate certificate program and current undergraduate program, and I'm an advocate for equitable access to natural medicine. I'm expressing my opposition to the proposed rule changes under 618, which seek to impose significant restrictions on the facilitation of natural medicine services outside of licensed healing centers. The proposed restrictions will disproportionately impact rural communities, individuals with past trauma associated with medical treatments, and those unable to afford private individual sessions at licensed healing centers. By creating unnecessary barriers to accessing natural medicine services, including allowance only for those eligible or actively receiving palliative care and only in an individual use context, these rules risk marginalizing those who may already have the most difficulty accessing this healing modality. I predict that these restrictions will inadvertently drive consumers to seek unregulated services outside the legal framework, increasing the risk of harm. In doing so, the proposed rule undermines its intent to protect public safety and may incentivize punitive legislative responses that target facilitators operating within community healing and personal use protections. These facilitators often possess bona fide harm reduction expertise and provide critical services to individuals who cannot or choose not to engage with the regulated system. Further restrictions on community healing and personal use protections would exacerbate this trend, driving consumers even further from qualified practitioners and increasing risk potential. Proposition 122, which legalized natural medicine in Colorado, was passed with the clear intent to expand access to these services, both in a regulated setting and in a community healing setting. Heavy-handed restrictions, such as limiting facilitation outside of licensed healing centers to those employed by such centers, undermines this mandate. This trend, which began with the legislative process of Senate Bill 290, specifically in revisions like those prohibiting advertising of services if natural medicine facilitation is part of the promotion, represents a departure from the will of the voters and risks eroding public trust in the regulatory process. To address these concerns, I urge the board to consider alternative regulatory frameworks that balance safety with accessibility, such as expanding eligibility for natural medicine outside of healing centers beyond those with palliative care or terminal diagnosis or other homebound conditions, allowing independent licensed facilitators to provide services without requiring affiliation with a licensed healing center, creating oversight mechanisms that emphasize education, safety protocols, and community accountability rather than excessive restrictions. Thank you for your time and dedication to this important issue.
Thank you for your comments. Robert Corey, you have been unmuted.
Thank you. Greetings. I guess I have 2 minutes. All right. It's good to see everybody. Rule 2.10 should include a psychiatric technician, which is licensed, specified in already in Colorado statute, and would be, it just makes a lot of sense since we're dealing with psychiatric issues. CRS 12-295-100 et sec. Also, it should include a registered nurse, which is again licensed and specified in Colorado statute. And then in general, my comments relating to dosage 6.17, maximum participants, things like that. I think we should resist putting numbers on these things because, again, we are administered by already licensed professionals. The number 64, I mean, I don't think that has any basis in anything. I'm sure somebody just picked that out of a hat. So, let's say you have a wedding of 200 people and they're all like thinkers and needing this. I mean, my personal wedding was 200 people. So, and actually some of the people on this call were at that wedding. So I don't think we should do a 64 thing. I'm against that. And again, we should defer to the licensed professionals to make the best judgments under their licensure. We should also include practitioners of Chinese medicine, massage therapists, chiropractors, and naturopathic medicines. All of these are licensed in the state of Colorado and nationally and internationally. Again, we should just defer to licensed professionals to administer this program. Native American healers too. They are a big part of this.
Mr. Corey, can I ask you to please wrap up your comments?
Yes. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments. Shasta Wynn, I have unmuted you. You should be able to unmute on your side.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Shasta Wynn. I'm a licensed psilocybin facilitator in Oregon. I also created one of the Oregon approved facilitator training programs. I've been providing facilitation and supportive services for facilitators at Satya Therapeutics in Oregon since March of 2023. My background, I also have a master's degree in psychology. For over 10 years, I was a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, focusing on co-occurring addictions and trauma. I also taught undergrad biopsychology. So I do have some feedback and concerns regarding 2.10. First, despite my qualifications, the rules don't seem to clarify how someone like me, who doesn't currently have a Colorado clinical license, would be able to lawfully apply for a clinical facilitator license. So as applications are now open, I do request some rulemaking addressing this. Also along those lines, I want to mention that integrating clinical models into psilocybin services is a completely new framework that I believe will take significantly more rulemaking to ensure public safety. Also worth noting, training programs licensed before this type of rulemaking can't arguably show adequate training on such regulations, particularly those that are offering their practicum in Oregon service centers that can't provide such training. I have proposed a remedy for this, a pilot cross-state bridge program that would specifically focus on teaching Oregon facilitators the specific rules of clinical integration in Colorado, as well as the standards related to services provided outside of centers, because also Oregon doesn't have those particular options. So in kind of summarizing all of this, I want to kind of give my feedback from perspective on Oregon that I really feel like rushing approvals and licensure before proper rulemaking really doesn't align with procedural due process, fair procedure, or public safety. I really think that these particular rules should get a lot more attention. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Allison Allen, you have been unmuted. Allison Allen. All right, Allison may be having some trouble unmuting on her side. I will go to the next person and we'll
Okay. There.
we'll try again.
Hello.
Can you
All
hear
right,
me?
Barini Majuska, you have been unmuted. You have 2 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we
Hello?
can hear you now.
Okay. It just so you guys know, there might be a tech issue because I was unmuted on my phone and then it remuted me somehow. So anyway, my name is Barina Majewska. I'm counsel at the law firm of Vicente. I wanted to thank you all for your ongoing efforts with these rules. Like some of the speakers before me, I'm concerned about the restrictions for in-home care in 6.18. As we've talked about, this restriction came up really late in the process after we had adopted rules that seemed to work well for the community and for folks interested in receiving this type of care. As we know, set and setting is incredibly important for the success.
What's up? You getting stuff done?
Hello.
Sorry about
Can
that.
you guys
should
hear
be
me?
able to go ahead. I muted the other person.
Okay. As we know, set and setting is very important for the success of this type of work. It's very sensitive to the mind state and the comfort of the participant. And so given that, the cost benefit analysis of placing this type of restriction on this kind of care doesn't make sense. Any facilitator, whether in home or in a healing center, would still be subject to the rigorous training requirements we've placed on them. They would know how to conduct a session, assess for risks. So there wouldn't be any significant higher risks in an in-home setting. This type of restriction would of course be most impactful for folks that have agoraphobia or other medical or physical conditions that I don't think are adequately addressed by the new language in 6.18. And as folks have mentioned, it would increase costs and limit accessibility for individuals who live far away from a healing center or cannot easily travel or afford to travel to get to one. We've discussed these types of impacts several times and they remain very important. But I also want to keep emphasizing the more nuanced effect that this type of restriction has on the quality and the nature of the care provided. A facilitator who works closely with the participant is going to be in the best position to know whether or not an at-home session and the flavor of that at-home session would be most beneficial and most easeful for the particular participant and their sensitivities. Certain types of more ceremonially themed administration sessions may not be compatible with holding that session in a healing center. All of this would only drive more participants to the personal use sector when they want that type of administration session or when they have those sensitivities. And that would make it so that they wouldn't be able to benefit from the rules of the regulated sector that we, all of us together, have crafted with so much time and effort. So given that, I would ask you guys to consider relaxing the restrictions in 6.8 and allowing facilitators to provide in-home care in most situations. We can put other limitations around that if there's a real safety concern, but otherwise the restriction just doesn't seem to buy us anything that's worth the limitations it creates. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your comments. I'm going to try Allison Allen. You should be unmuted on my side. If you want to go ahead and give it a shot again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, great. Okay, well, I just put my comments in the chat, but I would like to just say that I agree with Tasha, especially that removing healthcare facilities as a point of service is a real problem for those of us that hold DEA licenses or hold federal contracts in particular. I'm a neurologist in the Roaring Fork Valley, which is a rural community. And we have several patients in our clinic who are looking forward to using psilocybin, but would not be able to do so at a healthcare facility that is not also licensed as a healing center. I personally have been advised not to apply for a healing center license within my neurology clinic because of these federal contracts and my DEA license, which may be in jeopardy. I'd also like to oppose the restriction on no groups in authorized settings. And this, especially in our community, is a very, very big issue when we are paying for therapists to come in and do this work. Allowing groups is a huge access issue for those who need this natural medicine the most. So I would encourage the board to consider allowing groups in such a setting. And obviously all of these will happen within the setting of a clinical licensed facilitator, but requiring that they be at a healing center is cost prohibitive, as well as prohibitive for all of these practitioners who have to abide by federal guidelines. And you're simply going to be taking away medical supervision in that scenario. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comment. The next person I have on my list is Dory Lewis. Dory, you have been unmuted.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Dora for providing us the opportunity to share our comments today. My name is Dory Lewis. I am one of the co-founders of Elemental Psychedelics and also a licensed professional counselor in the community. I've been involved in the ketamine sector, providing education for ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, providing ketamine therapy since 2019. And involved in the psychedelic movement in the last few years. I am concerned about the limitations for at-home care. I believe that this will push providers to remain underground. As somebody who's teaching folks and providing education for the Colorado licensure, one of the questions that I get a lot when people are interviewing for our program is, am I going to be able to do this in my small practice as somebody who maybe only wants to do this once or twice every few months? Why will I have to pay this healing center fee if I'm only going to do this with a few clients? And many of my clients would feel safe and comfortable with me doing this in their home or in my home or in a home office. And so being able to keep those folks involved in the legal system, involved in the licensing process is going to support us in maintaining supervision and consultation for those folks and not having them go underground, which I'm concerned that more and more people will feel that they can work under that, in the underground or in the decrim space. And not utilizing the supervision, consultation, and the clinical support that could be available for them if they go the Colorado licensing route. My other concern is with the microdosing, and I believe that, what we understand that microdosing really is a non-perceptual dose of psilocybin. So having to do an hour-long session in order to do this kind of this protocol doesn't really make sense. And I think that's something that we're finding in some of these rules is that from what we know, microdosing is really about and how it helps people. It doesn't make sense to have a long session in an office in order to do this subperceptual dose, which is really done on a regimen of a daily use that you would do kind of in the privacy of your own home, and to just get a consultation on it would be probably necessary for these low dose psychedelics. And those are all my comments for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. The next person I have on my list is Jake McWink. Jake, you have been unmuted.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Jake Wink, founder of Mushroom Stroke Center and Psychedelic Stroke Institute. I represent myself as a stroke survivor, but also on behalf of individuals recovering from stroke and other neurological insults that have resulted in disability. My focus is on 6.18. I just want to highlight how this has come across to someone not from an able-bodied perspective. A friend I spoke with recently told me, "So Jake, is this essentially to hell with your walker or wheelchair? If you want this badly enough, you'll pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get your ass there." I really wasn't sure how to respond. I did my best to defend this, saying it's a miracle something like this is even going to exist. But I really struggled with proving to them how this remained equitable and inclusive of such a range of life experiences. She followed with, "Jake, I didn't choose to have a stroke." I'm just gently reminding folks who've lost normal function of 50% of their bodies, understandably may struggle with extreme depression, grieving the loss of an identity and an ability of their life no more. Same with severe social anxiety, resulting stutter or aphasia, where you can't think of a word, is incredibly embarrassing, as instead of being able to say the word shoe, you resort to that thing you've put your foot into. Makes you feel like a fucking idiot and want to crawl back into your depression cave. Lastly, I'm so excited for the care that will be provided at healing centers. It's truly a gift that this is opening up. Yet these experiences are going to be financially out of reach. Let me remind you, a single CT scan cost me $4,500. I needed multiple. In total, my cost of speech, occupational, and physical therapy was $12,000. Ensuring I squirreled away an extra $2,000 to get to a healing center and pay for services, something that could genuinely improve my outlook on life, just simply wouldn't have been an option. I'm grateful for the inclusive and equitable choices you all are making. I know that these are not easy, and I hope that you will continue making the decisions that will make this world a better place. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. The next person I have on my list is Martha Hamill. Martha, you have been unmuted.
Hello, I'm Martha Hamill. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Aspen Psychedelic Resource Center and the Colorado strategist for the National Psychedelic Association. I live in the Roaring Fork Valley and have been primarily based on the West Slope for over 20 years. And over my decades here, I've noticed a regular problem of regulators on the Front Range failing to consider the unique needs of ski towns in rural areas when writing regulations. And the restrictions on home use in 618B follow this pattern. In Aspen, I've been speaking to numerous trained, experienced facilitators who have been planning on getting licensed, but they can't find suitable, affordable locations to open centers. In-home care might be the only option in the Roaring Fork Valley and other rural areas across the Western Slope. As Dr. Allen alluded to earlier, the current restrictions make it impossible for facilitators to operate in my community. The Western Slope has a considerably higher suicide rate than the rest of the state, as well as a dearth of mental health providers. And these restrictions only enhance a troubling gap in care and will result in encouraging underground facilitation as opposed to licensed centers. I really hope that we can allow for in-home care in Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next person I have on my list is Kelly McGinty. Kelly, you have been unmuted.
Great. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you and good afternoon. Yes, my name is Kelly McGinty. I'm a nurse practitioner with 17 years of experience working in various fields such as family medicine, but the majority of which inpatient and emergency medicine, which required discharging patients with in-home services. These services are specifically outlined by Medicare and Medicaid programs and regulated by the Social Security Act. I'm hearing the recommendations that there's a significant need for in-home care for these people that meet the criteria as outlined and followed by our own government. I think that it's pertinent that we continue these following these criteria for natural medicine. I think that these discussions are important, and I have some suggestions that could help improve the safety for in-home services. They were discussed a little bit in those regulations, including having dual facilitator models, recording for transparency using video or audio recording of the sessions that can provide an additional layer of accountability and safety if needed. But right now, physicians, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants can recognize and document criteria for people to receive in-home care. And this should be included in the Natural Medicine Act as well. As mentioned, restricting these natural medicine administrations just to certified palliative care providers really does limit our access. For example, we work specifically with veterans, first responders that have severe PTSD, anxiety, depression, and they qualify for in-home services with their current diagnoses. Under the existing regulations, they would be excluded from receiving natural medicine at home, which is a potentially major benefit for them in their condition. Please acknowledge and listen to our concerns and hope that we will be able to provide in-home services based on the established criteria, incorporating additional safety measures if we need to. And I think that we can all responsibly administer natural medicine to those in need. I urge you to consider broadening the criteria to include the homebound individuals, which will help bring these medications to the underserved population. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for bringing this medicine to our state. I really look forward to facilitating for those in need in home as well as in clinics. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. The next person I have on my list is Vanessa Johnston. Vanessa, you have been unmuted.
And I'm the co-founder and vice president of the Colorado End of Life Collaborative. Thank you for this opportunity. Like many people, I have significant concerns about Rule 6.18. I have dismay around the new proposed rules regarding at-home facilitation. As I understand it, the new ban is on at-home facilitation, except in cases of palliative care where the facilitator has 100 hours of experience at a healing center or works for a healing center. And these rules will drastically limit access to natural medicine services and cause unintended negative consequences for many people and communities. As an end-of-life doula, I work with people coming to terms with their mortality. It is an extremely challenging and fear-filled process for some. While I do work with various networks of support, including palliative care and hospice providers, sometimes those dealing with impending death experience and existential dread that no amount of conversation can help. And this is why I've pursued training to be a psychedelic sitter. And natural medicine, like psilocybin, has the potential to help my clients achieve more peace before their inevitable deaths. I own my own end-of-life doula business, do not intend to open a healing center or work for one. This means that under your newly proposed rules that my clients would not be able to access the natural medicines that the people of Colorado voted to legalize. I visit my clients in their own homes and facilities as they are too ill to travel anywhere. Also, not everyone with a life-limiting diagnosis pursues palliative or hospice care for a variety of reasons, many of which have been mentioned before, particularly regarding marginalized communities. Please reconsider your new rules so that I can offer all possible tools to my clients. Everyone deserves the opportunity for peace at the end of life. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next person I have on my list is Shannon Hughes. Shannon, you have been unmuted.
Hi, thank you. My name is Shannon. I'm a social worker, a researcher, educator. We have a private practice in Fort Collins. We've been providing mental health care for a number of years to the community, and I'm also a co-founder of Elemental, which is a training organization for facilitator training here in Colorado. I really appreciate the opportunity to offer some comments on these proposed regulations, and aligned with so many other people on the call today, I am against the proposals in 6.18 that effectively ban at-home participation for anyone except for those in palliative care. And, you know, I'm encouraged by the outpouring of community voices here, because this is obviously, you know, a really important issue to the community and to the people who will actually be providing these services and receiving these services. And you know, the intention, I believe, of Proposition 122 in the Senate bill was to make natural medicine available and accessible and in a way that is safe. And I believe that the ban on at-home facilitation is counter to that, unfortunately, and is going to make it less safe for everyone involved. And I think it's going to make it less accessible. And so it's just like not the intent of what Colorado voted for. And you know, my concern, I have many concerns about it. People in rural areas not being able to access services. We have facilitators in our program who are in Durango or in the Western Slope. They're very concerned that they're not going to be able to facilitate because there's not going to be healing centers in their areas. It'll drive people to the unregulated space because that's where they're going to be able to have this to be provided the service that they need. And so for so many reasons, I'm not sure exactly what the safety concern was that prompted this new proposed regulation around at-home use. But whatever that safety risk was, I don't think we're meeting it effectively. And then we're creating an entire new set of unintended negative impacts. So I just urge the division to please really consider all of this outpouring of voices and concerns that you're hearing. And, you know, maybe we can take a wait and see approach. If there is a real safety risk that the division's concerned about, maybe we could, you know, brainstorm other ways to like meet that need, or take a wait and see approach and see if there is a real risk that we do need to create a regulation around. But to just ban it from the beginning, I think is going to really have a negative impact for a lot of people across the state. So thank you very much.
Can I please?
For,
oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for the time today.
Thank you for your comments. The next person I have on my list is Chelsea Coyle. Chelsea, you have been unmuted.
Amazing. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Chelsea Coyle. I'm from the nonprofit organization, the Microdosing Collective. Over the last 4 months, I've spoken with over a dozen healing centers in Oregon that offer microdosing programs, many of which are currently running microdosing specific initiatives. And together, these centers have hundreds, I'd say hundreds, if not thousands, of success stories from individuals who have found relief and benefit through their microdosing programs. The overarching feedback we've received is that the biggest challenge these clinics face is the current regulatory burden, which impacts both the patient welfare and also impacts these clinics from a business perspective. And so from a patient perspective, this looks like the transportation, the paperwork, the wait time regulations, all of these things result in very high dropout rates because only those with the financial resources and with the time can actually access the programs. That leaves a very large portion of the population, especially those who need extra access, behind. One clinic even shared that around 80% of their interested clients drop off, particularly among the working class, because of these regulations, which is just, in my humble opinion, unacceptable. And from a business perspective, you know, the paperwork, the time commitments, the unnecessary staffing requirements, all of that makes it hard for a clinic to even be financially viable. And so while these microdosing programs are helping those who can access, the programs are just not accessible enough to be equitable. And as Dory here previously said, it can lead to people going underground, which pose so many safety risks. And so these regulatory burdens should be reduced to really prioritize making programs accessible, even at home, so people can utilize them more. And I strongly urge that Colorado, at the very least, should follow Oregon's lead around duration requirements so that we can make microdosing accessible to at least some. And really consider looking at other changes as well around paperwork, mandated sessions, just all of these things that will help make it accessible to those who really need it most. Thank you for listening and for the work and the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your comments. The next person I have on my list is Frances Gomez Tangle. Frances, you have been unmuted.
Hello? My name is Frances. I'm opening up a mushroom grow supply store. I have a disability, though. I have a learning disability from a head injury. And I'm really excited about the promise of psilocybin to reopen the motor cortex critical learning period. If we can remove those regulations, we can really help people heal and be able to, stroke survivors, we can help them be able to reutilize parts of their body that they haven't been able to use for a while. I'm really interested in the research by Gul Dolan with psychedelics, and especially in opening that motor critical learning period. But for my learning disability, I have done some unregulated psilocybin consumption, and I am positive that it's not as helpful if I was able to access a service provider. And I would need that flexibility just as a person that needs this, that could really utilize this treatment. So that's my input. I'm really concerned about hospice, people in hospice being able to access this medicine, and not just the medicine, but also somebody that can help provide them support while they're doing natural medicine, or while they're participating in natural medicine. I've done a lot of psilocybin, but like I said, I don't think that I'm utilizing the medicine as powerfully as I could be to help heal my own learning disability and my own challenges. And for us to put additional regulations on the natural with the natural in the 618, if those regulations were to pass, that would really inhibit even my ability to access a service provider. And that's really frustrating. That goes completely against what the whole Natural Medicine Act is about, I think, using it to really help people who need help. And if we're disenfranchising people who can't get, we're making it so that somebody who has lost mobility in their hand can't get to a service provider, or can't use natural medicine in a meaningfully and strategic and intentional way to help them with their relearning how to use their hand and assigning different neurons to help them use their hand, then we're really not even doing the work of introducing natural medicine to our communities in Colorado. We should just keep it all underground then. I think it's really stupid, and it's really a way that's going to prevent people from accessing healing and accessing a service provider.
Thank you for your comments. The next person I have on my list is Sean McAllister. Sean, you have been on.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to the division here for all the work. Dora, it's very difficult what you're doing. I understand that. And so please understand our criticism comes with a lot of appreciation for your work. But just globally, at first, I'd like to note that here we are after licenses, applications have gone live, and we're still talking about finalizing rules. And I understand the fees were set recently, the fee amounts were set, but those aren't posted on the website of the agency. And so just as a global picture, I know you guys are doing the best you can, but we really need to get these rules finalized and published so people can make plans based on what the rules actually are. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Sean McAllister, McAllister Law Office, co-author of Prop 122. I'm not representing anybody individually, but have consulted with hundreds of people interested in getting into this system. So please, let's finish the rules. I also basically am echoing everybody else's comments that we need a provision for shorter supervision of microdosing. The minimum 3-hour supervision period is not really necessary or functional for microdosing. So that's one. Of course, the in-home use thing, I just, as a co-author, disagree fundamentally that we intended only to have palliative care be the context for in-home use. That was one example. And as everybody has said, this will definitely increase cost, limit access. And I'm not sure what we're protecting against, as other people have said. As I've heard, there have been 16,000 journeys in Oregon and 5 calls for medical service in those 16,000 journeys, something to that extent. So I understand there's going to be a lot of sidebars here, but I think we're over-regulating in general, requiring journeys to be in healing centers, and there's nothing inherently unsafe about working in someone's home. In fact, for many people, it's safer. So thank you again for your work, and we're excited to get the work going, but we need to finish the rules. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next person I have on my list is Joshua Capel. Joshua, you have been unmuted.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Dora, and thank you, Director Brad, for for all the work you've done on this and continue to do on this. I especially want to thank you for abandoning sort of like the last minute changes around restricting at-home care to only palliative care and going through a larger stakeholder process around authorized locations and around low dose administration sessions. This process is necessary to hopefully, make better rules. And, I really hope that, the stakeholder and the advisory board, are adequately, listened to on these topics. My name is Joshua Capel. I'm one of the co-authors of Prop 122, along with Sean McAllister. I'm also the former chair of the campaign committee. I'm a senior policy advisor at the Healing Advocacy Fund, where we've been dedicated to responsibly implementing state psychedelic programs here in Colorado and in Oregon. I'm also one of the founding partners of the law firm Vicente, where we've spent, almost the last 15 years working in these emerging post-prohibition industries, trying to make responsible regulations that work for everyone. And I've also been at every one of these stakeholder meetings. And so I'd say it's an understatement to say that I'm invested in the success of this program. In fact, I'm deeply, deeply invested in it. And it's, and the success of the program is directly tied to like my own legacy. And just like the success of this program is directly tied to a lot of our legacies. And so my ask today is pretty simple. I respectfully ask that, Dora and that you guys just listen to the advisory board, you listen to the stakeholders, and you trust us. You trust us that allowing at-home care in more inclusive situations is actually better for this program. As we've heard at the last rulemaking hearing, as we heard at the National Medicine Advisory Board meeting, as we're hearing today, no one supports this restrictive of a rule. This restrictive of a rule around at-home facilitation, around palliative care, Rule 6.18, which is what I'm talking about, is just not necessary. And there's many, many cases that we've heard today about why this rule should be expanded and why the community who has deep experience with psychedelics, have shown up at these hearings, should be trusted. And that, the National Medicine Advisory Board, which also recommended, expanding, this rule, that also recommended not tying facilitators to healing centers, should also be trusted. The experts should be trusted. And that's what I'm asking today, from Dora and the department, is to just trust the experts on these rules and to not override every single person's opinion that this rule is unnecessary. Especially,
Joshua, I do have to ask you to wrap up, please.
Great. The final piece I'd say is on the microdosing rules, they should reflect Oregon's 30 minutes and 15-minute administration time sessions and not the 1 hour. I appreciate where we've come from 3 hours to 1, but we should copy Oregon. As Sean McAllister mentioned, there's only been 5 incidences out of 16,000 doses given. And so we don't need to create more prohibitive restrictive rules in Oregon when it comes to microdosing. So I'd recommend changing the administration times around microdosing to 30 minutes for the
Thank you
first
for your
session and
comments.
15
You
for
have
the
to
second.
move on to the next person.
Thank you.
I apologize. We're running short on time. All right, before I go to the next person, I did just want to mention that we do only have 4 minutes left in our rulemaking hearing. So if anyone has, or I'm sorry, our stakeholder meeting. So if anyone does have comments, please raise your hand or put those in the chat box as soon as you can. You can also email any comments to Dora_DPO_rulemaking@state.co.us, and we will post those comments to our website and consider those part of the record as well. So with that, I will unmute Gabriela Vergara. Gabriela, you've been unmuted.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Hi, I'm Gabriela Vergara. I have experience with microdosing mushrooms for some mental health issues. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is Rule Point 210. And I do believe that we need to include Chinese medicine providers as well as naturopathic medicine providers that are licensed, or in Native American indigenous tribes that are certified, because a lot of these people are prescribing reishi mushrooms, cordyceps mushrooms, and all kinds of other mushrooms that do all kinds of different healings. And adding that to this mix, I think it could be very beneficial for the patient as a whole, from a standpoint of natural medicine as a whole. And that will be all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next person I have is Megan Richmond. Megan, you have been unmuted.
I'm talking public.
Hi, my name is Megan Richmond. I'm the co-founder here at Plant Magic Collective. We're a psychedelic resource center downtown. We're also the headquarters of Prop 122. I really just want to thank you guys for giving us the space to speak and let you know how we feel. I want to really echo Sean McAllister, Martha Hamill, Tasha, and also really just the call to trust us, the people that really fought for this initiative, the people that have been really fighting for drug reform here in Colorado for over 15 years. And yeah, or just speaking to what we see is working and has worked, and just really a call to believe in us, and please allow the laws to be work as they're written and publish these rules, and let's work from there. And also a call to really move that 3-hour microdosing piece to 1 hour. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next person I have is Osmo Lab. Osmo, you have been unmuted.
Oh, hi, thank you. This is actually Mason Marks. I'm an attorney and law professor, and I'm speaking on my own behalf. Just some quick comments. I agree with most of the comments that have been made about home use. And I would just encourage you, though, to not limit to palliative care or hospice, because there are, of course, people with disabilities who might have mobility impairments or mental health disabilities. Some people mentioned agoraphobia or OCD. It would be discriminatory to limit only to a particular subcategory of people in palliative care. And I'd also urge you to be hesitant to impose greater restrictions on those people, because then you're effectively subjecting some of the people who might be the most ill or the most impaired to the most heavy restrictions, which is also discriminatory. And I'll mention there is a lawsuit about at-home use in Oregon ongoing, and I imagine that given the amount of community input I'm hearing today, there could be a similar lawsuit against the state of Colorado. And then just finally, you're hearing from a lot of the people that drafted this legislation. And I think this is a lesson that you can address these issues in the original legislation very clearly, instead of leaving it to the regulators to come up with their own rules. So when you're looking at other states for similar legislation, just address this problem, ensure that regulators cannot deny at-home use. And that would have just solved this problem from the very beginning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We don't have any other hands raised, and we are at the 2:30 mark. So with that, thank you for participating in today's meeting. As part of this collaborative process, all comments and program recommendations will be provided to the director for review. Any proposed revisions by the director will be made available to stakeholders for additional comments prior to the rulemaking hearing, which is tentatively scheduled for January 14th, 2025. All rulemaking information can be found on the program's website under the Public Notices tab, and written comments may be sent to Dora_DPO_rulemaking@state.co.us. Please provide any written comments prior to the rulemaking hearing on January 14th. This concludes today's stakeholder meeting. Thank you again for your participation.